ChatGPT very confidently gives you completely wrong answers. Sometimes very simple basic code, very simple maths calculations are completely wrong, and it will give you these wrong answers with so much confidence that you will have no idea that these responses are factually wrong. Sometimes it will give you completely different responses for the same question, and sometimes even when you're asking for different responses, it is going to repeatedly keep generating similar or same response. Why does ChatGPT behave like this? Why is there a huge disclaimer, which I'm sure you must have seen, that ChatGPT can make mistakes, check important info. Even if you are someone who is not so much into ML AI, considering that we all use ChatGPT so much, it makes sense to understand the technical reasoning behind such bizarre behavior of ChatGPT in very simple terms. So in this video, we will take 10 such use cases where a normal user would expect a different behavior from ChatGPT, and we will understand the technical reasoning behind it. In short, we are trying to understand the behavior or the working of the ChatGPT in very simple terms. Let's get started with an interesting one. How come ChatGPT makes mistakes while doing the maths calculations? Because in reality, ChatGPT does not perform any mathematical computation. Yes, you heard that right. It only appears like ChatGPT is doing the maths, when in reality it is not really doing the computations. So first, let's understand what is ChatGPT designed for, what is it trained for or optimized for. See, ChatGPT is trained on a lot of data. What it does is, it learns a lot of patterns, it recognizes a lot of patterns. What is it optimized for? See, when we are getting the responses, what ChatGPT is actually doing is, word by word, it is just predicting that this should be the next word, this should be the next word, and that is how the responses are generated. It is just guessing that, okay, this should be the next word, this should be the next word, this should be the next word. So for basic maths calculations, basic formulae, it has already seen those formulae and those basic calculations a lot of times in the trained data. So it is able to guess or predict those answers. But whenever we ask ChatGPT to do any complex calculations, it is unable to do it because it is in reality not doing the mathematical computation. In short, there is no calculator attached. There is no programming language that is doing the calculation. Even when we get the final answer, there is no final checking that is happening that, oh, is this the correct answer or not. Just on the basis of a lot of mathematical examples that it has seen earlier, it is just guessing that, okay, this seems to be the next word that would make sense over here. Before we move ahead, I would like to take a moment over here to say something to those who are technically interested in GenAI. See, there are two sides of GenAI. One is if you are learning to build your own LLMs, build your own version of ChatGPT. The other side is when you are learning to use LLMs to build your own apps. Now, if you are learning to build your own LLMs, you need to understand transformer architecture based on which ChatGPT is built. And for that, the prerequisite is understanding LSTM and RNN, for which the prerequisite is neural networks. So this is how you will be able to build your own version of ChatGPT. Neural networks, ANN, CNN, RNN, LSTMs, transformer architecture, and then you will be ready to build. And when you're talking about building your own apps, that is where LangChain, RAG, and all of this comes into picture. In our 7 weeks hands-on generative AI course with Educosys, we have covered both of these sites in 7 weeks. Now, this is a very, very comprehensive course which I am teaching live currently. All the recordings are available for lifetime, notes, code, everything is available. You can check out the curriculum. You can check out the testimonials of our courses. For this course also, we already have such great feedback. I'm thoroughly enjoying this course and I'm so proud of it. If you're interested in learning live with me or watch the recordings, 7 weeks, this is very, very comprehensive and we are covering everything. It's very beginner friendly. At least check out the details in the description. For now, let's get back to the video. Coming to the next interesting question, why does ChatGPT have an upper limit on the number of words that we can send in the input text? So sometimes when you send the text to ChatGPT, you would have gotten the response that this is too long, this is too big. Why is that upper limit there? Now, in order to understand it, let's understand what does ChatGPT do with the text once we send it. It needs to understand the text. In order to understand the text, it needs to understand the meaning of the words in it, right? In order to understand the meaning of the words, what it does is, it understands the relationship between every two words that are there. So, it picks up all the pairs of the words and it sees how every single word is impacting the every other word. What is the relationship between any two words that is there in this input text? For example, if our text was Keerti teaches at Educosys, it is going to see the relationship or the influence or the impact of the word Keerti on every other word. Suppose, how is Keerti related to teaches? How is Keerti related to at? How is Keerti related to Educosys? Similarly, for Educosys, it is going to check with Keerti, with teaches, with at. So this is done for every pair of words. So if we have n words, we have to understand how many relationships, n square relationships, because there are n square pair of words, right? So we have to understand relationships between every pair of words. So n square relationships need to be computed. Now these relationships or these computations are stored in a matrix called self-attention matrix. Attention is a very, very important concept in transformer architecture. Here basically we are seeing that how every word is attending to every other word. That is why self-attention matrix. Now how big is this matrix? N square. So imagine if you have 100 tokens, then what is the size of this matrix? How many computations do you have to do? How many elements in the matrix? 100 into 100. 10,000 computations doable. Imagine if there are 10,000 tokens, then how many computations need to be done? 100 million computations, which is obviously going to be slow. It is going to take a lot of computation power. It is going to take a lot of memory. It is not easily achievable, right? And that is why ChatGPT has put an upper limit on this to save the computation cost, but good enough number of tokens, which is good enough to handle most of the real case scenarios. Okay, so we understood that there should be an upper limit on the size of the input in ChatGPT. Why is there an upper limit on the size of the output also? Why does that happen? That does not make sense. So let's understand what happens as the words are generated in ChatGPT. See, when the input was given, one self-attention matrix was generated n by n. Now when every single word is generated, every single token is generated, that word or that token is actually dependent on all the tokens before it. So as every token is generated, no, the same self-attention matrix that you had actually expands. So suppose your first word was generated. Earlier the size was n by n. Now this is going to expand to n plus 1 by n plus 1, and all the self-attention values are going to be updated. Every element is going to be computed again. So with every word that is being generated, your self-attention matrix is actually expanding from n to n plus 1 to n plus 2 and so on. Your matrix is expanding and you are calculating all the elements in the matrix again and again and again, and that is why there is an upper limit on the output as well, because it is very, very computationally expensive, because with every word you are updating the matrix again, you are expanding the matrix again. Very interesting, right? It is so beautiful. By the way, this is why in ChatGPT, whenever we are talking about the token limit, we are talking about number of input tokens plus the number of output tokens. So the size of your output actually also kind of depends on the size of your input. You must have heard that in ChatGPT 3.5, the token limit was 4096. Then it was updated to 8000 in 4. Now in 4.0 turbo and all, it is 1,28,000. So like this, they are trying to increase the number of tokens. By the way, also the token and word, like these are two different concepts. I have been using this interchangeably, but there's slight difference. Like for example, unbelievable is one word, right? That is actually 3 tokens, unbelieve and able. Similarly, running, run is 1 token, ing is 1 token, or exclamation marks are also separate tokens. Like for example, wow, an exclamation. So this is actually 2 tokens. So there's a slight difference, but you get the point. When the token limit is reached in ChatGPT, it stops generating output midway. Suppose it stopped generating. Now if I type continue, it will seamlessly continue generating the output from where it left off. So how is this happening? Because the limit was reached on the token. Now self-attention matrix cannot expand further. So how is ChatGPT taking care of this? So what essentially happens is that whatever output had been generated, from this ChatGPT is going to again compute a completely new self-attention matrix and send it like the input to this new query. So this computation is actually very, very important if you think about it, and there must be so much of interesting maths involved, right? Because there has to be proper context present from the previous output, because this continuation should seem very, very seamless, right? So there should be enough context from especially the last part, and it should not lose the context, because what is going to happen is that otherwise it will start talking randomly. It is going to go in a completely different direction from what it was talking about. So it should look like it is one complete answer only. So the computation of self-attention matrix is also very, very important now. What essentially is happening is from whatever last output was there, a completely new matrix is computed with enough context, and that is sent like a new input. So again, this is like a new input output, so it will have its own limit for the number of tokens. Coming to the most weird one, which according to me is also one of the most important ones. I guess a lot of you are going to be surprised. Let me know in the comments how many of you already knew about this. ChatGPT sometimes has hallucinations. It hallucinates. Sometimes it is going to give you false, made up, misleading, factually wrong information. Let me give you some crazy examples. Sometimes ChatGPT might say that so-and-so celebrity had quoted so-and-so line, some quote that celebrity had given. Maybe the quote was from some other celebrity. Maybe the quote never existed. It just made up the quote. Maybe it is going to give you some citation from a research paper. Maybe that citation was from another research paper. Or maybe the research paper never existed. Or maybe this particular line, the citation never existed. Or it might give you some historical event that happened, some information about the event that actually never happened. The event itself never happened, it is giving you history about it. So all of this can happen. Why does ChatGPT hallucinate so much? Why does it make up information and give it to you? And with so much confidence also. So why is that happening? See, first thing that you need to understand is that ChatGPT has no fact checking. Like all the browsers and all the famous apps that you must have seen so far have databases. That is their source of truth. So whenever we are getting the data, we are getting it from the database. We know this is the truthful data. Okay, this is our source of truth. But in ChatGPT, that is not the case. You must have heard that ChatGPT generates text probabilistically. And this is very, 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 very important point. Everything in ChatGPT is about probability. It is about statistics. Okay. So what essentially is happening is, as ChatGPT is generating one by one every text, every word, right? So it is computing probabilities for the word. Suppose the next word that has to be generated, for that suppose there are 100 words that are candidates. I'm just giving an example. Now it is going to compute probability for every single word, and whichever word has maximum probability, that is going to win, and that is going to be generated as the output. So ChatGPT actually is just giving you output based on probability. That is why we say it generates text probabilistically. That is why it is giving you answer with so much confidence. Poor guy does not know that it is giving you false information, because there is no fact checking happening. ChatGPT is lying to you without knowing that it is lying to you. ChatGPT is trained to give you very structured text, so it looks like it is so confident, it looks like it is so authoritative, but ChatGPT does not know that it is lying. So there is no fact checking happening, it is all probability. I hope a lot of you will be able to guess the reason for this one. Let me know in the comments, I'll be very interested to see. Why does ChatGPT generate incorrect or wrong code sometimes? Let's take a step back and let's talk about how does ChatGPT even generate code. See, ChatGPT is trained on a lot of data. It has seen millions of snippets of code. Now, when it went through so much of code, it would have learned patterns. Now, based on these patterns, statistical patterns based on probability, it is just predicting, it is just guessing that this should be the next token or next word, and that is how it is generating the code. Is it really executing the code? No. Is it testing the code? No. Is it running the code? No. Is it thinking like a programmer? No. I hope you're getting the hang of it. ChatGPT does not perform mathematical computations. It does not have a calculator. It does not do fact checking. It does not have a database. Similarly, it does not run the code to test it. It is just generating the code based on the patterns it has learned based on the probability. Let me give you one more example. It is not trained for translation, right? For language translation. So sometimes when it might encounter a completely new word, a very rare word, it might not be able to translate properly because it has maybe not gone through that word during training. Similarly, if you ask it to generate a completely new code snippet that it has not seen, see, it has seen so much of code that most of the code it will be able to generate. But if it is something completely new, it might not be able to generate. When you ask ChatGPT to generate a list of something, it might do a lot of mess ups. But the more interesting point over here is that if you are asking for a bigger list, then there will be more chances that ChatGPT is going to mess up. And let's understand this in detail. First of all, let's take an example. Suppose you're asking ChatGPT to generate 10 reasons why or 20 points of something. Suppose you ask to generate 10 reasons why. There can be a lot of types of mess ups that it can do. For example, it might generate 9 points instead of 10 or 11 points instead of 10. It might not remember that I had to generate 10 points. Sometimes it might miss some points. For example, it has missed the 8th point. So after 7th, there is directly 9th point coming. Or it might have repeated points. So there are different text only, different reasons, but it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8, 9, 10. That is also possible. So there are many kinds of mess ups that are possible. Now, I think all of you might have understood that there is no explicit counter in ChatGPT. So there is no one place where we are going to count it, okay, 10 have to be generated, 9 have to be generated, 8 have to be generated. No counter like this happening. What is there is self-attention matrix, right? So let's understand that what is going to happen if we have a bigger list and what is going to happen if we have a smaller list. Let's first consider the case when I'm generating a smaller list. For example, 10 reasons of something. Now what will happen is that when I generate the self-attention matrix, this 10 word is also going to have a context because it is there in the input. So it is also there in the self-attention matrix. The context of the 10 is computed, right? Now, as the output is being generated, the self-attention matrix is updated, which is fine because the list is small only, so it's fine. It's okay. The context of that 10 is not lost. Now, suppose instead of 10, the number was 1000. Okay, so we had to generate suppose 1000 words of something or 1000 reasons of something. Now what is going to happen is when you're generating 1000 tokens, when your self-attention matrix is going to be updated so many times, the context of that 10 is eventually going to get lost. Say after 200, 300 elements of the list that have been generated. Now what is more important in that self-attention matrix? What context is more important? What were the recent tokens that were being generated? That is why the concept that same self-attention matrix is being updated is actually important. It is going to help you understand these things better. What is essentially happening is that as your output is growing, the importance of the context of the input is actually reducing. The input context is essentially getting lost. So if your list is smaller, ChatGPT might generate accurate results. But if you're asking for long lists, then it might do a lot of mess ups. Some people assume that ChatGPT can do everything, including appreciating art. See, in reality, ChatGPT does not have emotional intelligence. It does not have emotions. Let me give you an example. See, ChatGPT will be able to generate jokes, right? Because it has been trained and it has gone through millions of jokes. Like for example, it might understand that this is a knock-knock joke or this is a punchline or these are one-liners, and it might also be able to generate a lot of jokes. But there are some jokes that will be dependent on, say, the tone you speak, like the timing, the implied meaning. If you don't speak it in a particular way, then it might be just like a statement instead of a joke. And that applied humor, ChatGPT might not be able to understand yet. Currently, it is not able to do that. Maybe in future, based on the audio, based on all of this, it is able to mimic. But currently, understanding the emotions is not there. Similarly, for poems, for music, it has gone through millions of poems and music and it might be able to write completely new lyrics, but it will not be able to feel or understand the emotions. It is just generating tokens based on probability. It is just statistics that is there behind it. There is no emotions and all. Just wanted to make it very clear. Suppose you ask ChatGPT what is 2 plus 2 and it answers 4, but you said no, you are wrong. 2 plus 2 is equal to 5. ChatGPT is going to agree with you and is going to say, you are right. I am sorry. Apologies. My mistake. 2 plus 2 is equal to 5. Similarly, you can convince ChatGPT for anything. You can convince sun rises in the west. You can convince that some historical event happened that did not actually happen. You can convince that the capital of India is not Delhi. You can convince it anything. Basically, you can make ChatGPT hallucinate. And this is a huge problem. It has over-agreement or over-correctness problem. See, ChatGPT is not designed to confront you because it has no fact-checking. It assumes that you might be right and it just agrees with you. It apologizes. It always goes like, yeah, you might be right, I might be wrong, and it is going to correct itself. So let's discuss in terms of self-attention matrix also how it is going to happen. When we send the input, you are wrong to the ChatGPT, it is going to update its self-attention matrix. Now this "you are wrong" is very, very important because it is the most recent token. So the importance or the context of the previous output has now diminished, and what is more important? "You are wrong." That sentence is now given more context, more importance. As soon as it sees "wrong," okay, so it means that I have to correct myself. The word "wrong" will actually mean, in terms of maths, it will mean that I need to correct myself. So it is going to have a bias towards user agreement, and that is why whenever you tell ChatGPT that no, this is not how it works, this is how it is supposed to work, it is not doing any fact checking. It is not doing that. It is just taking your input. It is giving more importance to the input that you are giving than to what was the previous output. And it is going to change the output accordingly. It is going to update the self-attention matrix and give you the output. ChatGPT does not have a hard-coded personality. It does not have a predefined or a static personality. It is going to dynamically adapt to the input. If we have to understand it in very simple terms, suppose I give "explain in detail." Now when constructing the self-attention matrix, it is going to have the word "detail" and it is going to see the impact of it on the other words and on the output, right? So while generating the output, while generating the tokens, the importance of detail will be a lot. Similarly, if in front there was "don't explain in detail," so "don't" has this negative connotation which is given a lot of importance. So based on that, the probability is calculated. So in the end, this is all that is happening. Now fancy term has been given to it by some people called prompt engineering. The key point over here is, the main thing is that in ChatGPT there is no default setting. So the more you can tell in the input that act like this or act formal or act casual, so formal word is going to be there in the self-attention matrix and it will understand that it has to act formal and it will generate the tokens accordingly. This brings us to the end of the video, but before we go, I have one last point to discuss. In fact, I have something to ask you, and let me see how many of you know about this. Did you know that because of ChatGPT, there is a major water scarcity problem that is coming up, and it is a major point of concern, major point of discussion in a lot of countries. There is a lot of water consumption happening because of ChatGPT. Why is this happening? Let me know in the comments, and I hope this will be a very interesting discussion. Also, considering all the points that I have discussed in this video, it might seem like that I don't like ChatGPT. That is far from the truth. I obviously use it for anything, everything. It has been extremely useful for me. We all use it, but I hope it was interesting to find out the technical nuances of why it behaves the way it does, and now you will be able to use it more responsibly and you will be able to have more fun with it. I hope, yes, let me know in the comments, and please do share the video with anyone who would find it helpful. This video, I guess anyone will be able to understand, not just technical folks, right? So this is very interesting, something different I tried out. And for the technical content, guys, I'm putting in a lot of effort. If you think the channel deserves to reach more people, if you think the content is worth sharing, please consider sharing it on LinkedIn or with your friends or with anyone, right? That would really help me. Thank you so much and see you next time. Thank you for watching till here.